Good afternoon. Welcome to the November edition on our supply chain management webinar series. A couple things before we get going this afternoon. If you have a question anytime during the webinar, raise your hand with the button on your dashboard there. And if I can, I'll answer the question during the webinar. If not, I'll stay on the line at the end of the webinar and field as many questions as you have. Second thing, if you want to see this or any of our previous webinars, you can go to our website webinar page, and there is a link to YouTube videos where we have many of our past webinars for your perusal at your convenience. So let's get started. Today we're going to talk about the cost of quality. We're going to look at why quality is so important now in this day and age. Then we're going to explore the cost of quality components, and we're going to wrap it up by looking at how those components, along with implementing quality improvement programs, can help us to take a look at the total cost of producing a quality product. So here we go. Why is quality important now? This picture of a 1955 Chevy Bel Air has a lot of fond memories to me. My dad was a World War II combat veteran, and when he came back from the war, he started building his family, and in 1955, he purchased his first brand new car ever, a 1955 Chevy Bel Air. It was his pride and joy. And at that time, every month, he would go out to the car, spend an hour or so under the hood, pull the spark plugs, clean the spark plugs, adjust the points, make sure it was running perfectly. Once a year, he'd have to do things like replacing all the spark plugs, replacing the points, the spark plug wires, adjusting the carburetor, a whole bunch of things. But that was the state of automotive technology in 1955. Now you would assume that over the years it would improve as time went on. Well, fast forward 25 years. 1980, Ford Pinto basically manufactured to the same technology and the same quality standards as my dad's 55 Chevy. You still had to do a lot of maintenance on it, a lot of service. And oh, by the way, the cost of the cars had gone up too. But it was what the American automobile industry saw as an acceptable quality product that the market wanted. The market wanted something that was stylish. They really didn't care too much about quality. Then, in 1980, a game changer hit the market. The 1980 Toyota Corolla. I can remember back when Toyota first was introduced in the United States in 1960. It had a reputation for lousy quality, worse than the American automobiles. They were unreliable. They would rust out before you finished making your final payment on them. But what happened in the intervening years was that Toyota implemented quality practices to eliminate waste and defects in their product. And in 1980, when they introduced the Toyota Corolla, they introduced a new concept to the American marketplace, and that was a quality car that was at an affordable price that would be very reliable. That introduction was part of the reason that Chrysler Motor Corporation almost went bankrupt in 1980. Because the American car market was still producing cars like my dad's 55 Chevy. The quality was not there any longer, and the Toyota Corolla and the Toyota Camry were what the market was looking for. They wanted a quality product that would last. Now, to the credit of the American automobile industry, within 10 years, they were making quality products also. They embraced a lot of the quality concepts that Toyota had developed, and they again started to be competitive quality-wise with the cars coming from Europe and from Japan. Now, as an interesting side note here, in 1983, a company called Yugo introduced into the American automobile market the Yugo, picture in the lower right of your screen. This car was built to the quality standards of American automobiles in 1955. It was a total disaster. I think it was on the market for 2 years, and within the last couple months of its being on the American market, they were literally offering a buy one, get one free deal. You bought one Yugo for $39.99, they gave you a second one for free. And you asked what did you do with the second one? Well, you put it in your driveway and you used it for a parts car to keep the other car running. You see, in that period of time, Americans realized that they could have a reliable car with good technology at a reasonable price, and it just redefined the entire market. Think of what we pay for our cars now. They are extremely expensive, but the car that you're driving, if you're driving 2005, 2006, 2007 car, which is 5 to 8 years old, those cars are most likely at the midpoint of their useful life. Cars nowadays are designed to last for at least 200,000 miles. Most cars don't need a major servicing until they've been driven 100,000 miles, and most people nowadays never, if they buy a brand new car, they never own it when the first major servicing is due 100,000 miles later. They trade it in on a new model. So the American market has changed, and they want quality. They're willing to pay a little bit more price for it, but they want something that is good, reliable, and worth the value. So that's why quality is important now. So now let's look at some of the cost of quality components. And for this, I'm going to put you all to work. Excuse me. Got a simple question for you here. Cost of failure when a product fails. Which cost is more? Those costs that you have when the failure happens in your plant before it goes to the customer, or the cost of your product failing when it is at your customer, the external failure cost. So simple question, which one do you think is the more expensive? Seems like everybody voted real quick on this one. I will congratulate you. I think that's the fastest I've seen everybody vote. All right, I'm going to give you about 10 seconds more. Make your decision. Okay. Here we go. Everybody voted for external failure cost. So let's start there. We have a product that got to our customer and it failed. If we have a warranty that we offered the customer, then we have to pay for the repair completely. If they have to send it in for repair, we most likely have to pay shipping costs both coming in and going back to them. But that's a minor cost in comparison to what happens to an organization's reputation. If you have a customer that has experienced repeated quality problems with your product, you may lose that customer, and that is a cost of failure. But more importantly, you'll never know the 10 or 20 other potential customers that this customer spoke to. And when they talk about your company, they say all kinds of bad things because of your quality. So the external cost of failure is by far the most expensive, because we might be able to calculate how much it costs to lose one customer, but it is almost impossible to calculate how much it costs with the customers that you never got because of your tarnished reputation. Now, let's look at the internal cost of failures. The internal cost of failure is things like reworking the product or having to scrap it and start from scratch again. These are adding additional material, labor, and overhead into your product to get the same result, the same quantity out at the end. So by far, the external cost of failure is the most expensive. All right, now I'm not done with you yet. I got another question for you. The cost of controlling quality. Which of these costs is more? The cost to prevent the failure in the first place, or the cost to inspect the stuff you produced to separate the good from the bad? So take a minute. Everybody vote on that one. All right, everybody is really hot today on answering these questions. Okay, so the majority of you indicated that appraisal cost is the most expensive. And some of you said that the prevention cost is most expensive. Interestingly, it depends on what period of time your quality improvement project is at. If you're at the beginning of a quality improvement project, all costs are basically the same between prevent and appraise. If you're further into a quality improvement project, that's where these two costs tend to flip depending on where you're at in the project. So let's talk about the cost of appraisal. Cost of appraisal, as simple as separating the good from the bad. The problem with using inspection to deliver a quality product to your customer is that inspection process doesn't add any value. All it does is add cost. And oh, by the way, no matter how many you inspect, you can never guarantee 100% quality product by inspecting just a little bit of each production run. So there is a very high cost of appraisal. Now the cost of prevention gets into redesigning your product, redesigning your process. These costs can be considerable, but in a current state where you're just at the beginning of a quality improvement project, the cost of appraisal outweighs them dramatically. Bear with me one second here. Here we go. All right. So we've looked at why quality is important at this time, and we've looked at the cost of quality components. Now let's take a look at the total cost of quality. This chart here is giving us three views. One before we start a quality improvement project. The middle, what happens to our total cost of quality during that project. And the third column is the long-term total cost of quality after successful implementation of quality improvement techniques. So if you look at before we implement, the majority of the cost of quality is the failed material, whether it failed in the factory and you had to scrap it and rework it, or whether it failed at the customer and you had to give them replacement. Prevention costs were minimal at that point. We might do a redesign every once in a while. When we implement a quality improvement program, things like statistical process control, where we turn over the process control to the operator itself running a piece of equipment. We have to spend a lot of time and effort there in training and education and getting those operators to be able to understand things like statistical process control charts and how they use them to maintain the product inside the parameters that it's supposed to run at. We also do things like the design changes to our product or possibly putting in new equipment. So in the short term, when we try to improve our quality, the total cost goes up for a while, and most of it is driven by the prevention costs that we are incurring. But a successful quality improvement project in the long term makes the cost of failure and the cost of appraisal go down to almost nothing. Now, the cost of prevention is still significant, but the total cost of failure, appraisal, and prevention is substantially lower. In this case here, by about 75% lower than before we started this project. So, in wrapping this up for today, quality is important now because if we are not producing a quality product or a quality service, there is some competitor somewhere in the world that is going to produce a quality product that is going to knock us out of the market. We need to, in order to produce a quality product, understand the different components of the cost of quality and then try to put our money where we will get the biggest bang for the buck to reduce the overall total cost of quality. So that's it for today. Any questions? Okay. Well, that concludes our November webinar. Next month, December, we wrap up our 2013 webinar series with a case study from one of my current clients, YTech Industries, and we're going to be looking at improving job shop performance. So I wish you all a happy Thanksgiving next week, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Michael, I see you jumped on for a minute. I'm going to turn your microphone on if you'd like to ask your question.
Don't have a microphone.
Well, that's okay. I can still hear you.
Oh, okay, brilliant. So I did type it in, and I wanted to know, how do you best measure cost of quality? You know, I understand the prevention, the appraisal, and the failure, the pieces of it, but you know, the one part that's still a little vexing is how do you best go about measuring it so that you're capturing it accurately?
Well, think about it this way. If one of the main focuses of your quality program is inspection, then it would be the people that you have, the part of the overhead that they consume, the amount of equipment that they have to have in order to do the inspection. That would be the appraisal cost of quality. From the prevention cost of quality, if you are implementing statistical process control and you have to take a whole bunch of operators and run them through an SPC class and teach them the tools to be used, that class and how much downtime the operators were down from their regular production thing would be part of the cost of quality. If you have to do a redesign of your product to enable it to be produced at a quality fashion, then the cost of that redesign would be included in your cost of quality. And it's It's not one silver magic bullet, but there are a number of components, and what you need to do is you need to keep track of all of them. And our folks in accounting usually do keep track of all that because we've got to charge all this stuff to different accounts. So it's just pulling together some reports there.
Okay, thanks.